Hey everyone, Nick with the Ball Seed Tech Team here. With weather warming up and garden mum production officially underway, I want to take a few minutes this week to build on some of the information Bill has shared over the last couple of weeks and add a few reminders to your grower checklists. Every mum season, I tend to get the same core questions from growers, especially as material starts arriving and hitting the transplanting line and moving into production. So today I want to try to head some of those questions off before they turn into headaches. This week I'll walk through a few topics that I get questions on most often: propagation, premature budding, and disease pressure. I'll also point you towards some additional resources if you want to go a little further down the rabbit hole on any of these topics. First up, propagation. Interestingly, a lot of newer mum growers like to try their hand at rooting their own cuttings. And while mums aren't the hardest crop to propagate, there are a few non-negotiables you really need to get right if you're going to do this yourself rather than purchasing rooted liners. Timing is the big one. Most mum liners are planted in early to mid-June in North America to be ready for sale in September through October. Since rooting takes about 3 weeks, and sometimes closer to 4 if you're newer at this, unrooted cuttings really need to be stuck in early to mid-May. In late May and into June, you might still be able to direct stick cuttings into a smaller container program and finish on time. But by about week 25, week 26, for anything going into bigger programs, even well-rooted liners would need to be pushed very hard to hit proper size before flower initiation. That's a tough position to put yourself in, so be sure you have the right timing for your input form and desired finish size before you book orders for unrooted cuttings or liners. Facilities matter just as much as timing. Can you root mums in a basic Quonset house with limited environmental controls and no overhead mist? Maybe, but for less experienced propagators is going to be a major challenge. Successful mum propagation really hinges on promoting good tone and minimizing stressors that lead to cutting breakdown. Fully hydrate your cuttings before they're stuck, minimize drought stress before roots begin to form by keeping humidity high and shading slightly, keep excess moisture off of foliage and from building up in the media, and get cuttings pumped up with mineral nutrients early. These factors make a big difference in liner quality and how long it takes to produce a transplantable input. If this is something you're thinking about tackling in future, the Ball Mums Growing Guide has a nice step-by-step process that walks through best practices. And at this point, this might be more of a next year project for many of you. Ordering and sticking cuttings last minute without a solid propagation plan rarely ends well. Just saying. Next, premature budding, also known as crown budding. A lot of growers deal with premature budding in late May and into early to mid-June. I find that newer growers are often caught completely off guard, understandably so, when they see buds forming on 5-inch tall mums and they're not sure what to do. The old school approach has been to apply foliar sprays of Ethifon, but I suggest a different strategy. First, don't pinch the plants. We reset other crops this way all the time, but mums just don't need it. Disbudding by hand isn't necessary either, and both processes are really just a drain on labor. Second, avoid Ethifon sprays if you can. Many modern mum varieties are actually quite sensitive to Ethifon. While it resets the flowering clock and can increase branching, overdoing it on Ethifon can result in smaller plants at finish or delayed flowering depending on the rate used and when it was applied, among other factors. Growers who have experience using Ethifon and other crops may be able to do so successfully, but the path to victory typically requires starting with strong inputs and aggressive post-treatment fertilizer management. For less experienced growers, Ethifon may raise the risk level for downstream issues and poor finish quality. The simpler and often better option is this. At the first sign of crown budding, push hard with fertilizer. Use an ammonium-based fertilizer like 20-10-20, or even tee the process off with triple 20 once or twice at 300 to 350 parts per million of nitrogen. Apply it consistently for multiple consecutive feeds. Your measure for success and what you should see is new axillary shoots pushing out from below the crown buds that eventually cover them completely. The key is to keep the pressure on with fertilizer long enough to get this response. When done right, this approach lets you avoid pinching, disbudding, and ethylene sprays altogether. If you want a more detailed explanation, we have additional crown bud management resources available on ballseed.com that walk through this process a bit more in depth. Finally, disease pressure. To wrap things up, I want to remind everybody about the need for preventative disease management. We have a number of best management practice resources available on ballseed.com and our tech doc library that are free and easy to access. They cover common issues like bacterial leaf spot, botrytis, fusarium, pythium, and white rust, all of which are much easier to manage proactively than reactively. And as always, if you're unsure about odd symptoms you're seeing on your mum crop or how to handle it, don't hesitate to reach out to your favorite diagnostician. I can speak for folks like me when I say we'd much rather help you develop a solid prevention strategy now than try to walk through a cleanup and crop remediation plan a few weeks down the road. Thanks for listening, and best of luck keeping your mum crop on track this season.